a long version of the toxicology video I did before, where I go into a bit more detail about it. So yeah, here we go. Toxicology is a branch of science concerned with the nature, effects and detection of poisons. Kind of a bit like I said before, and it was first recorded in 1790 to 1800 from the Toxicology. Toxico being meaning poison. I think we really couldn't find much from the origins of the word. And it's like it's a science that studies the adverse effects of that occur in living organisms due to chemicals. It involves really suck at computers sometimes. It involves observing and reporting symptoms, mechanisms, detection and treatments of toxic substances in relation to the poisoning of others. It can include environmental agents and chemical compounds found in nature, as well as pharmaceutical compounds that are synthesized for medical use in humans, these substances might produce toxic effects to living organisms, including disturbance in growth patterns, discomfort, disease and death. So the dose of the substance is an important factor of toxicology, and as it has a significant relationship with the effects experienced by the individual. It is a primary means of classifying the toxicity of a chemical, as it measures the quantity of the chemical or the exposure to the substance, as not all substances enter the same way. All substances have the potential to be toxic if given a living organism if it's in the right condition and dose. As everything can essentially kill you if you have too much of it. LD50 is a common term used in toxicology which refers to a dose or substance that displays toxicity that kills 50% of the test population, in which scientific research for actual surrogates are usually used to determine toxicity, and the data are extrapolated to use by humans. A conventional relationship between dose and toxicity has traditionally been accepted that the greater exposure to a chemical leads to higher risk of toxicity. However, the concept has been challenged by a study endocrine disruptors and may not be a straightforward relationship. There's subspecialties of toxicology, laser myself in, and it kind of focuses on particular aspects of toxicology. There's aquatic toxicology, chemical toxicology, clinical toxicology, ecotoxicology, environmental toxicology, forensic toxicology, medical toxicology, occupational toxicology, and regulatory toxicology. So to bring one of them as an example, chemical toxicology is a subspecialty of toxicology that focuses on the structure of chemical agents and how they affect their mechanism and of action on living organisms. My English is so failing me at the moment. Toxicology is a multidisciplinary field that includes computational and synthetic chemistry, in addition to people who specialise in fields of proteomics, metabolomics, drug discovery, drug metabolism, bioinformatics, analytical chemistry, biological chemistry, and molecular epidemiology. and it relies on technological advances to help us understand the chemical compounds of toxicology more comprehensively. And it's like toxicology and pharmacology are both studies that involve understanding chemical properties and their actions, but can differ considerably in other areas, as pharmacology primarily focuses on the therapeutic effects of pharmaceutical substances and how they can be used more effectively for medical purposes. Yeah, the tablet's still scaring me. While on the contrary, toxicology is closely related to the adverse effects of that can occur in living organisms when they come into contact with the chemicals. And it's why toxicologists, as they're known, are more concerned with measuring the risk of certain substances with risk assessment tools. And toxicologist is someone who has studied toxicology and works with materials and chemicals to determine toxic effects that may have an environments and living organisms. Some people are methodical and scientific and can be well suited to the career in toxicology. And similarly to the subspecialties of toxicology, toxicologists may also specialise in certain areas of the field. Specimens sent for toxicology are usually collected by forensic pathologists. They may also be appointed medical examiner or coroner in some jurisdictions, or a mortuary technician during an autopsy. Specimens must be properly identified, labelled and sealed as soon as practical after collection, and all human specimens pertaining to a case must be collected and bagged separately in tamper-proof containers, for obvious reasons, as people don't want to contaminate them. Any unique numbered seals are used to track all evidence for each case. Like any other evidence, the chain of custody must be preserved at all times, from the mortuary through the laboratory testing, reporting and storage for court purposes. The continuity of evidence is compromised. It can result in the case being dismissed in court if anything's a little amiss. There's common samples commonly requested on death, although there may be unique cases where they have to be addressed for some investigations. For example, exposure to volatile substances require that sample of fluid in the lung. Skeletal remains can be useful in determining prior exposure to the drug and other substances. And it's as everything has different things. For suicides, motor vehicle crashes and industrial accidents. And it's you have to take blood, urine, vitreous humour and part of the liver. While for homicides, you could be suspicious circumstances. Blood, urine, vitreous humour, gastric contents, bile, liver and hair can be taken. So yeah, there's quite a few out there. Blood, urine, liver. Blood is often a specimen of choice for detecting and quantifying and interpreting drugs and other toxicant concentrations. Concentrations of drugs and other toxicants in blood may be useful in establishing a recent drug ingestion and to determine the effects of a drug on the deceased at the time of death, or at the time the blood was taken, as it might not always be dead. It can complicate the investigation when someone has been taking prescription medication for some time. For cases involving hospital treatment before death, blood samples taken soon after admission and immediately before death can be investigated, particularly when poisoning is suspected before admission into the hospital. Any treatment given can change the result of toxicology tests or be helpful in the investigation. Like post-mortem blood tests. Blood presents problems due to often variable conditions and changes to concentrations from one place or to another to the body after death. The degree of composition can also interfere with testing, as the specimens can be difficult to analyse, where your body can degrade and soon not be there, kind of thing. Urine is like the most common example. The sample, as urine is like what comes out your butt plug and all. Yeah, like from down there. And it's like the most common sample used for drug testing in the workplace, but it's not always available for post-mortem testing. And urine test results do not directly correlate to drug effects at the time of sample collection, because of the time it takes the body to eliminate these drugs after they're metabolized, where the body breaks down products in the urine. Its usefulness lies in the fact that the presence of a substance in the urine is a sign that the substance had also been in the blood at an earlier time, like within a few days, and had been somewhat processed, detecting these metabolites gives proof that the drugs have been ingested. When urine is available, tests are also conducted for the presence of drugs of abuse, drug abuse, depending on the case and whether the results are of initial testing. Your tissues may need to be analysed, possibly including stomach contents, liver, and the like. The liver is a primarily solid tissue for use of post-mortem toxicology, because it is where the body metabolizes most drugs and toxicants. Many drugs become concentrated in the liver and can be found even when there's no levels of blood in the blood. In the latter situation, interpretation of findings can be complex. Like vitreous humor is like a clear gel-like substance that fills our eyes. It can be useful fluid to screen for a range of drugs. So like vitreous humor is commonly analysed for blood alcohol concentrations. This is of particular interest in motor vehicle trauma, workplace accidents, suicides, and homicides. So like vitreous humor alcohol concentrates are a little higher than the blood, about 50-20% on average, assuming that there's been no degradation. Interpretation of the toxicological findings in vitreous humor is just a tad more complex. There's like other samples that can be taken in like post-mortem toxicology, like stomach contents, as drugs and poisons can often be ingested. Stomach contents can provide important investigation to clues. In the case of potential overdose or acute poisoning, high concentration of the poison or drugs or toxins may be detected depending on how much time is elapsed between ingestion and death. In many cases, acute poisoning, like unabsorbed capsules or tablets, may be discovered, allowing relatively simple drug or poison identification. The total amount of drug or poison present in the stomach is more important than its concentration, because it has not been processed by the body yet. Another example can be like bone marrow. And it's like more particularly the bone marrow can be used for testing when necessary. but the availability and condition of the bone and skeletal remains may limit the usefulness. There is no data to suggest that the bones from one part of the body are better than others for toxicology tests. However, it is always easier to extract samples from large bones. Interpretation of these findings is often difficult when insisting in depth investigations, because the time that these toxins were deposited in the bones cannot be determined with reasonable certainty. When it's like hair and nails, like hair specimens are usually taken from the back of a head, can usually be tested for exposure to heavy metals and drug over a period of weeks and months. Hair is predominantly used for tests for drugs such as amphetamines, cocaine, marijuana, heroin, that kind of thing. And more recently, the tests have been created. If deceased was drinking heavily in the last few months before death. Drug analysis can also be done on finger and toenails in order to provide an even longer drug potential window of exposure than what we can find in hair. But it can be a little more difficult to process like nail process toxins. So interpretation of results is more difficult, while hair is subject to external contamination issues that can mitigate its value. So special sample preparations in the lab may be needed for a given case. Testing for biological fluids and/or tissues or drugs and other substances is a complex process that requires sophisticated instruments and specially trained analysts. In a typical autopsy, fluid and tissue samples are collected specifically for toxicology testing, and the types of samples collected from the body and the testing targets in the biological fluids and tissues are determined by circumstances of the case and the condition of the body. Once a laboratory, a series of tests will be conducted, usually on blood, for a large range of over-the-counter prescriptions and illicit drugs. As prescriptions should be more of a good drug than illicit drugs like heroin and all. I can't remember what it was. As well, it can also be tested for other alcohol and substances like metals, inhalants, environmental pesticides and insecticides, carbon monoxide, cyanide, and many other possible toxins, depending on the investigative clues on the specific test required. The biological evidence from autopsies are needed to support both common lab tests and help investigate some very specific potential causes of death. The biological evidence from autopsies. Routine testing testing without specific instructions to look for a particular substance will generally include the drugs, but not all drugs. If you're looking for alcohol, you kind of look for ethanol, or might even look for methanol or acetone, kind of thing. So yeah, death by poison can happen in a variety of ways, moving on very swiftly. For example, through recreational exposure by inhaling solvents such as butane lighter fluid or fuel, ingesting plant-derived substances like angel's trumpet, accidental exposure to a substance used in a workplace or even accidentally produced in a home like carbon monoxide, or suicidal ingestion of a poison such as strychnine, pesticides, and cyanide. For example, cyanide is infamous as it killed Hitler and many other Nazis. These all require like specialized tests, and the laboratory is alerted to the possible usage of involvement in death when requested for toxicology testing or submitted. You know, like the toxicologists analyze specimens submitted and then provide interpretation of significance of results based on the information. Received about the case. These analysts may work with crime laboratories, medical examiners' offices, government health laboratories, and even independent providers, depending on the criminal justice structure in a given community. Certification for individuals in the United States and Canada as a forensic toxicologist specialist diplomat is available through the American Board of Forensic Toxicology (ABFT). Certification can be based on the candidate's personal and professional record of education and training, experience, achievements, and formal examination. In Europe, individuals may become part of the European Register of Toxicologists through Eurotox, although through a similar process. While in Japan, the Japanese Society of Toxicology (JSOT) as a diplomat process the international discussion, and petition in toxicology is kind of widespread. Forensic toxicology employs a large number of analytical techniques to determine drugs or poisons relevant to case investigations. The capability of the laboratory to conduct routine toxicological analysis will vary dependent upon the equipment and technical capabilities and analysis experience of that specific laboratory and the people manning it. When needed, there are specific specialty toxicology labs that can test virtually any possible toxin or metabolite in almost every kind of post-mortem sample. A laboratory should also be accredited to perform analytical work and must be subject to regular inspections and approved accreditation personnel. And certification in forensic toxicology laboratories in the United States and Canada are also available through the ABFT and is voluntary and additional to accreditation. All the laboratories, all of them preferably, must be validated, fully documented and fit for purpose, and it will ensure that the laboratory can produce accurate and reliable results for legal investigations. All laboratories should confirm the standard of the operating procedures, results, and confirm that they are meeting standards, and report results to peer reviewed by second toxicologists before being released. In America, toxicology community recently completed a 2-year effort to prove these standards in the name of the Scientific Working Group on Toxicology (CSWGTOX) in order to meet more stringent legal and scientific challenges. And immunoassay is more commonly used drug screening involved immunoassay techniques. Immunoassay are laboratory tests that use antibodies to detect reaction with specific substances, and the screening tests are designed to detect whether the sample is positive or negative for the targeted drug. And it's for interpretation of the drug screening drug test is possible as a true positive result that occurs when the test correctly detects the presence of a drug. A false positive, where a test incorrectly detects the presence of a drug when actually no drug is there. A true negative, where the test confirms accurately confirms the absence of a drug, and false negative where the test fails to detect the presence of a drug when it is actually there. For the samples that give positive screening, results confirming tests should be performed preferably using mass spectrometry or MS for detection. Specific immunoassay tests are available for many drug classes, including those drugs of abuse as well as a range of novel compounds such as buprenorphine, bath salts and spice, and other new synthetic drugs like chromatographic technique. Things like chromatographic detection is an analytical procedure used for separation of compounds or drugs, and is frequently based either on high-performance liquid chromatography or gas chromatography (GC), coupled with MS mentioned earlier. And this is the definitive technique used in toxicology to establish proof of structure of unknown substances with the extensive development of commercial MS technology at an affordable cost. GC, MS, and HPLC and HPLC-MS, commonly known as LCMS, have become increasingly popular tools in modern toxicology laboratories. Like systematic toxicological analysis, they're the usual practice. Don't mean to say that. Toxicological examination begins at the preliminary identification of alcohol and screening of a wide spectrum of acidic, neutral, and basic organic drugs or poisons. If a toxin is detected, confirmatory and is necessary quantitative testing has been performed. Quantitative being quantity, not quality. Quantitative testing determines how much of a substance is involved. In general, positive identification is achieved using at least 2 independent analyses, and preferably using different methods, like using immunoassay for initial testing and then GCMS or LCMS to confirm the results can work. And a chromatographic confirmation test could also determine quantification, simplifying the testing process. So yeah, this is the long version of today's Ology video, so I hope you enjoyed it. Very short and long, and I'll hope to see you all very soon. So yeah, bye for now.